should you find yourself unceremoniously dumped into the realm of Khorne, the chances of you losing your grip on sanity are, frankly, terrifyingly high. Even the most battle-scarred warrior would reel from the sheer brutality of this place, where everything seeks to win favor with its lord, and the currency of choice is blood. Specifically, your blood. In truth, whose blood it is hardly matters. The Lord here, you see, is a fair despot, decreeing universal treatment without bias. Whether it's you or some other poor sod passing through, it's all the same to him. Blood is blood, and we all bleed alike. So, to continue, you're rather thoroughly fucked. Every element in this realm is alive and diabolically inventive in its quest to end you, whether it be a rogue stone, a gust of wind, or the very ground under your fleeing feet. Escape, naturally, is a futile fantasy. Eventually, you'll be caught, hung upside down and exsanguinated to the last drop. Your body will likely then be tossed into the boiling river, where it will undergo its final, violent voyage, thrashing and twisting like a puppet in the savage currents and scalding heat. As you drift inexorably toward Khorne's throne, what remains of you swells grotesquely, puffed up by the hellish spa treatment you've endured, until you're almost bursting, the rest of you long since dissolved into the black depths below. Your final resting place will be in the shadow of the Demon Lord, deep beneath his colossal throne within one of the vast lakes, where the remnants of your being will be assimilated. Khorne, being in a particularly cheery mood, might even crack a smile and acknowledge your sacrifice. However, from his vista, you are but a drop in an ocean of death and suffering. For this cycle of existence, in this particular domain, perpetually churns through an endless expanse of corpses. Khorne is the blood god, the lord of slaughter and wrath incarnate. They say he's the war god whose roars of unending fury ripple across the cosmos, back to the very first bloodshed by mortal hands. Followers of the dark powers have brawled over the origins of the blood god for ages. Some argue it was Khorne's will that drove the first savage to smash a skull with a stone, sparking the cycle of bloodshed that fueled his rise to a galactic scourge. Others claim it was the raw surge of mortal anger that gave birth to Khorne, embodying the deep-seated yearning for violence in every beating heart. Yet the true acolytes of Khorne give no damn about such squabbles. They're too busy reaping souls and spilling blood. Conflict is as varied as the stars in the sky. Jealousy, rage, competition, hunger, power grabs, land grabs, greed, or just the primal drive to dominate. It's inevitable. History has never known peace. Even those who preach enlightenment and tranquility can't dodge the truth. Without strife, stagnation would choke progress, leaving bold ideas to wither. Despite its seemingly suicidal nature, Khorne stands as the mightiest and most relentless of the Chaos Gods. Its essence is fueled by endless wars and the blood of the fallen, their skulls sucked into the vortex of its raging inferno. Khorne doesn't bother with sweet nothings or complex schemes to ensnare mortals. The simmering rage under their polished veneer does the job just fine. The road to Khorne's hellish domain is as treacherous as any laid out by the sneakier dark gods. Violence is not just an instinct, but a necessity in this cruel cosmos, celebrated in those deemed protectors or saviors. Many societies, perched on the brink of destruction, hail those who can fight, who can shield kin and homeland from the encroaching darkness. Khorne is violence distilled to its purest, most brutal form, making it eternal, a constant across all places, times, and minds. Its fingerprints mar every conflict, from petty squabbles between irate scribes to the universe-shattering clashes of the Horus heresy. From its skull throne, Khorne reaches beyond the thin veil of reality, meddling in the affairs of mortals, magnifying their conflicts. It spurs them on, nurturing their hatred, urging them to strip their rivals of power, fanning the embers of their animosity. As empires clash over newfound wealth, the blood god revels in the ensuing chaos. When a brother's envy simmers against another's success, Khorne stokes that envy to fever pitch. Possessions are snatched, resources grabbed, siblings murdered. With every act of violence, more blood flows to Khorne, fueling its laughter and swelling its terrible might. The blood god looms, a colossal beast of muscle and malice, towering hundreds of feet high, a monstrous figure to behold. Khorne's mug, more savage hound than god, is twisted into a perpetual snarl, mostly obscured by a grotesque helm dripping with the skulls of fallen kings. Often called he, Khorne is beyond such simple distinctions, a being of raw psychic power, genderless as the void. Wrapped in layers of brass and dark iron armor, Khorne's every grunt and growl rumbles with eternal rage, his cries of bloodlust thundering throughout his infernal domain. He broods on a throne wrought from brass, perched upon a mountain of skulls, ghastly trophies of both his champions and their vanquished foes. The macabre mountain boasts heads of 100,000 species, from countless human skulls to the colossal bone domes of tyrannids, each a testament to the bloody victories of his followers. These ghastly achievements feed Khorne's glory, but do nothing to sate his ravenous appetite for slaughter and doom. At the foot of this ghastly throne, a great forge is rumored, where the weapons and armor of both mortal and demonic servants of Khorne are hammered into being, born from violence and destined for destruction. Beside the throne rests a two-handed sword, a monstrous blade of legend, capable of devastating worlds in a single stroke. Known by many names: Woebringer, Warmaker, the end of all things, this weapon's power is unmatched. When Khorne wields it, reality itself is cleaved, opening rifts for his demonic legions to surge into the materium, spreading carnage and chaos. Khorne embodies the essence of mindless, savage violence, a wild bloodlust that seeks to consume all, regardless of allegiance. The god's fervent acolytes are rare, dwindling as they joyously hurl each other into death's embrace. For Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it does. Depicted as a titanic, armored behemoth, every inch of Khorne is encased in intricately carved armor, adorned with a relentless pattern of skulls. A great winged helm, framing a bestial, snarling visage, crowns this fearsome figure. Armed typically with a rune-inscribed sword or axe, Khorne stands as a symbol of primal destruction. In simpler, raw cultures, this god is even shown with bare, clawed hands, ready to rend and tear the fabric of reality itself. The base conflicts of mortal life, petty squabbles and border skirmishes, feed Khorne as meagerly as bread and water might sustain a man. But just as a body hungers for richer fare, Khorne craves more substantial strife. It will not skulk in the shadows, content with mere bickering or distant discord. Khorne is no common beast or lowly creature. It is a god, and a god's hunger is both horrific and unending. The worship of Khorne is ancient and varied. Primitive human tribes have paid homage since they first hunted the wilds and waged war upon their neighbors. Many unaware that the deity they exalt is the blood god himself. For some, Khorne is less a god and more a primal force, a spirit of nature to be placated or a shadow to be courted for favor. In these cultures, Khorne often takes the guise of a great, shadowy beast, a mastiff with eyes aflame, prowling for prey. Invoking such a spirit promises a fruitful hunt or a bloody triumph over rival clans. But humans aren't the only ones to tread this crimson path. Khorne's blessings might also fall upon the savage orcs, notwithstanding their allegiance to Gork and Mork. Merciless Nakuli mercenaries, ferocious Rakgol hunters, indeed warriors from any race can fulfill the blood god's thirst. They need only dedicate their kills, their very acts of violence, to accumulate favor and power from their divine patron. Even deep within the imperial bounds, unwitting devotion to Khorne festers. On hive worlds, gangs clash over turf and resources, sometimes engaging deadly assassins to dispatch a formidable foe. Such an assassin under temple command might seek a god's guidance for their blade. In praying for divine aid to commit murder, they flirt dangerously with Khorne's gaze, the lord of murder himself. Unbeknownst to their superiors, these killers might be honoring Khorne with every life they take, whether their leaders acknowledge this dark patronage or are simply indifferent, concerned only with the temple's gain in power and influence. No matter the desperation that drives a soul to its embrace, Khorne demands its tribute in blood. Names, circumstances, the shape it is known by, these mean nothing. Blood ties every follower to Khorne. It is through the shedding of blood, via murder, butchery, and war, that the servants of the blood god tear their enemies asunder, soaking the dirt of countless worlds in dark red, all in Khorne's name. Its worshippers know well that the river of blood must never dry. Fail to provide, and a follower might just find their own blood spilt, their soul devoured, their skull added to the monstrous pile encircling the throne of skulls. While Khorne's influence perpetually stirs mortals towards violence and bloodletting, mere acts of sporadic brutality are insufficient. Isolated murders, stealthy killings, they don't sustain the rivers of blood in Khorne's realm. Nor do they raise his throne higher upon the mountain of skulls. No, Khorne craves massacre on an unimaginable scale. The extinction of whole species, planets bathed in gore, and above all, endless warfare. Such grand-scale conflict is what feeds the insatiable hunger of the blood god. All species, even those claiming to seek peace and enlightenment, eventually resort to war against their rivals. For some, war is a reluctant duty, a means to some peaceful end. But for those sworn to Khorne, war is the end itself. To cleave a head with a chain axe, to feel warm blood splash across your hand, that is the ultimate prize. It becomes an addiction. Violence begets more violence. Blood calls for more blood. A life devoted to Khorne is one of never-ending destruction, punctuated only by brief respites to gather strength before the bloodshed begins anew. A single man consumed by rage might claim a few lives before he's cut down, but gather hundreds, thousands, fueled by such fury, and entire cities, planets, even galaxies tremble. Armies of Khorne's devout sweep across planets with one hellish purpose: to collect skulls and spill blood for their dark master. Armed with colossal demon engines, these favored warriors wield weapons of unimaginable devastation. As doom mortars of the chosen legions pound Gravemaker shells onto the cowering masses. Frenzied troops rip into the planet like it's a living beast. Orbital defenses crumble. Cities are reduced to ashes, and enemy war machines are torn to shreds, setting the stage for slaughter to truly begin. The initial havoc wrought by long-range arms is merely the prelude. The essence of battle, the true glory, is found in close quarters, where each kill stokes the fires of greater bloodshed. Khorne's armies take no prisoners, show no mercy. Such is the gods' command. Streets flood with blood, bones crunch underfoot, and the relentless march of destruction drives the warriors to ever more grotesque acts of violence. Pistols are soon discarded for chainswords and power axes, their blades carving through flesh and bone, each resistance met with a visceral pleasure. But even this thrill fades, leaving Khorne's warriors craving the warmth of blood gushing freshly over their hands, the sickening snap of bones, the tearing of sinew. In these brutal moments, a communion blooms between Khorne and its followers, briefly quenching the gods' insatiable thirst. Yet this satisfaction is ephemeral. As the fervor wanes, Khorne's roar of rage urges its legions onward to regroup and ravage anew. The war, the slaughter, is unending. In the blood-soaked expanses of Khorne's own domain, where enemies are scarce, the battle never ceases. Bloodthirsters lead legions of bloodletters, flesh hounds, and other demonic entities in ceaseless combat, sharpening their brutal instincts while blunting their blades against each other's armor. Axes rip through hellish flesh in an endless orgy of carnage. Limbs are lopped off, chests are skewered on demonic horns, faces are mutilated by feral jaws and talons. When one battle dwindles, the fallen are trampled or hurled into abyssal chasms, the battlefield pausing only long enough for new legions to gather. Khorne's warriors shun the use of psychic powers, for their deity despises the deceitful arts of magic and the cowardly sorcerers who wield them, especially those who served Tzeentch. Drawn by the allure of absolute power, men and women flock to Khorne's banner, seeking the strength to crush their enemies. The most zealous followers, utterly consumed by the god's bloody aura, understand that Khorne craves continuous wild carnage purely for the joy it brings. Khorne commands a vast legion of followers, particularly among humans, whose raw emotions and desire for dominance resonate with his call to arms. His worship thrives among the primal human tribes of the feral and feudal worlds, where civilization is a faint glimmer on the horizon, and the law of the blade rules supreme. Unlike other chaos gods, Khorne's disciples don't bother with elaborate temples or sanctuaries. Their worship is enacted on the battlefield. In the absence of enemies, they turn on each other with an impressive devotion. Those who find favor with Khorne are often blessed with mutations, gifts of the chaos they serve. These can manifest as supernatural strength, monstrous features, or more grotesque alterations like horns, claws, or talons designed to tear and rend. These mutations are worn as badges of honor, stark reminders of the blood god's power, and sources of inspiration for those yet to receive his brutal benedictions. The call of Khorne sings loudest to warriors, soldiers, and those in martial trades, drawing in anyone who feels powerless and hungers for the might to impose their will or seize their desires. To these souls, Khorne offers a devil's bargain, enhanced strength, vitality, and mastery in the raw chaos of close-quarter combat. Yet, the deeper one's soul sinks into Khorne's bloody embrace, the more they become slaves to a gnawing bloodlust, a fury that can only be momentarily quenched by the act of killing. These devotees, Khornates, find a cruel sort of vigor in this madness and the mutational gifts that bolster their martial skills. But this power comes at a dire cost, as their bloodlust spirals beyond control, demanding ever more brutal acts of violence to stave off the beast within. The relief that slaughter brings is fleeting. Over time, long-serving Khornates degenerate into mere engines of adrenaline and aggression. They become monsters, living only to kill, their humanity drowned out by the roar of their own rage. Inevitably, these warriors transform into berserkers, favoring the intimate savagery of axes and blades over the impersonal distance of guns or energy weapons. To a Khornate, psychic powers and sorcery are the pinnacle of cowardice, anathema to their creed of blood and steel. They scorn subtlety and strategy for the simple purity of charging headlong into melee, where they can tear flesh from bone with their bare hands. Their battle tactics are non-existent, relying solely on brute ferocity and the skill of their arms to close with enemies and rip them apart. And rip them apart they do. For a true Khornate, there is but one concern that overshadows all others: to spill more blood and claim more skulls for their merciless god. In this pursuit, every battlefield becomes a temple, every skirmish a ritual of slaughter, feeding their deities' eternal hunger for blood. Through the blood god's domain, a vast realm in the chaos-wrought bowels of existence, the land itself bleeds and wars. It's not merely a plain of blood-soaked fields and endless combat. Here, violence and despair are ever present, the constant shadows trailing any damned soul unlucky enough to tread these cursed grounds. Each hellish vista unfolds into the next. At the core from his skull throne, Khorne gazes out, an overlord watching over his dominion, spurring his forces into conflict against any who dare approach, be they demon brethren or audacious invaders poised for inevitable defeat. The skies above this dread expanse are forever storm-tossed, Winds that might as well be the god's own furious breath scour the terrain, ripping stones and sodden earth from the ground and hurling them leagues away, where they crash down in raw bursts of annihilation. The land fights back with equal savagery. Earthquakes belch molten brass that sears through the storm clouds, stanching their wrath for a fleeting moment before the tempests gather strength and rage once more. Mountains surge from the plains in the blink of an eye, some soaring skyward like titanic swords, others bulking up like vast shields thrown against the storm's advance. Rivers of boiling blood slice the landscape, dividing the domain into territories where rival bloodthirsters clash against each other. One might believe these rivers of blood possess consciousness, because they are constantly at work, carving new paths through the land, splitting it as effortlessly as a knife through skin. The blood rivers drag down legions and landscape alike, only for the land to heave back, closing wounds with torrents of molten brass that solidify into barriers against the river's assault. Every element of this realm battles to destroy its brethren, each striving to demonstrate its worthiness of Khorne's favor. This entire domain thirsts for blood and dominion as much as any demon that stalks its fields. At the furthest bounds of the blood god's territory, a circle of volcanoes known as Khorne's Rage stands guard. These colossal behemoths, stretching kilometers skyward, spit their black smoke and molten brass into the heavens, forging a barrier thick with darkness and impassable to sight or passage. Here, beneath a sky choked with ash, the ground glows ominously, the air crackling with the menace of bloodstorms. Red lightning slashes the darkness, its flash a precursor to the echoing roar of thunder. A sound akin to a bloodthirster's lash, followed closely by the pounding of 1,000 juggernaut hooves. These volcanic giants form a formidable bulwark, their noxious ash and fiery brass a stern warning to any would-be invaders. Those bold or foolhardy enough to challenge this hellish frontier face more than the scalding air and brutal terrain. The very earth of Khorne's Rage animates, stone and brass coalescing into demonic forms wrought from sheer defiance and fury. These demonic constructs attack with a mindless violence, their blows crushing, their heat searing. Once their duty is done, they crumble back into inert rubble, lying dormant until the next call to arms. At the volcano's feet simmer the forges of lesser furnace demons. Here, in these blistering depths, the endless arsenals of the blood god, axes, swords, hammers, and armor, are wrought along with the intricate components of Khorne's demon engines. Although The massive war machines are assembled elsewhere. Their vital parts begin here, under the shadow of Khorne's rage. Living in such a place is perilous, even by the standards of this realm. At any moment, an eruption could engulf the forges in molten brass. A mere trifle to Khorne, who cares little if a few demons are lost to the flames. New ones will rise from the blood pits to replace them, and the work continues unabated. Yet despite the hazards, the furnace demons thrive on the dangers that their home presents. On the far-flung battlefields, it is Khorne's own minions who mostly fall. But at the edges of this world, other warriors meet much more horrific, unspeakable ends. Do you remember us saying Khorne had a policy of no prisoners? Just kill or be killed. Well, it turns out that was more a guideline than a hard and fast rule. Should Khorne feel a tickle of whim rather than rage, there's a quaint opportunity to become his esteemed guest. Picture this, you charging into his dread domain like a lunatic sprung from the deepest, darkest pit of insanity. And let's not forget the timing. A true masterstroke of luck is needed, for there must be an open slot at his anvil, as rare as a day without slaughter in his bloody realm. Only then do you truly hit the jackpot. Imagine being the honored soul who gets to be hammered into oblivion on the anvil of Khorne himself. Every soul condemned is a subject of honor, being forever bound to the cold, hard iron of an anvil. Each strike of the hammer not just shaping metal, but also reshaping agony, redefining despair. Khorne values these captured souls, not out of any sentiment, mind you, but for the sheer utility they provide. Each crushing blow they absorb under the hammer is a gift, a sacrifice that fuels his ceaseless wars. You should consider it a grave privilege, he'd say with a chuckle, that you get to serve in such a manner. For you did not choose the anvil, it chose you. This isn't just some grim duty. It's a perverse form of selection, one that marks you out as particularly worthy of enduring this eternal, pounding nightmare. Khorne delights in pointing this out, as a reminder that your endless suffering is both useful and amusing to him. So there you are, trapped in the bowels of the infernal forge. With each passing moment, what remains of your humanity is hammered out, stretched thin and reshaped into something entirely different. What about my cries, then? Will no aid come to my soul? I hear you ask. Oh, they're utterly pointless, drowned out by the roar of the furnaces and the rhythmic beating from the warden's hammer. Each strike lands with a violent clang that reverberates through the very core of your being, making your essence shake and shudder like a massive bell in a storm. This is, actually, where you get to curl up, assume fetal position, and politely ask them to stop, because honestly, you've had your fill, and it's really not all fun and games anymore. But hold on. Let's not get carried away with wild fantasies. There's no mercy here, no time-out corner. This is your reality now, a relentless, unending cycle of fire, metal, and exquisite pain. As for divine intervention, please, don't make me laugh. God, if there ever was one, does not give a shit. Either he's long dead or decided to skip town with his divine tail between his legs. So no celestial cavalry is coming. In the end, your screams will just be some background noise in Khorne's fiery symphony of anguished souls. Just try to make the best of it, okay? For your reservation here has no expiry date. And you know what they say. It is important to think positively, for there is always someone worse off. Or is there? Now, let's move on from those damned anvils and explore other aspects of Khorne's domain. For in the expanse of his territory, there exists warp energy, the very essence of chaos, that fluctuates in and out of existence. Yet there are spots where this energy gathers and festers. Here, the land itself is violently reshaped, great chasms torn asunder in the tortured earth. Time, a feeble human concept at best, loses all meaning in these warped formations. Seconds and centuries are indistinguishable. These warp storms eventually dissipate, their remnants seeping into the craters they spawned. At such times, Khorne's command is clear and brutal. Harvest blood through the most savage means imaginable. The souls claimed in these bloodbaths are not merely killed, they are sacrificed to a darker purpose. Their lifeblood drains into the craters, mingling with molten brass and the acidic spite of Khorne himself, forming a sinister concoction, a new blood pit. From these pits, the blood god's minions, bloodletters, furnace demons, and other vile creatures arise. Born of warp-infused blood and divine venom, these fiends are forever bound to a cycle of violence, tasked from creation to demise with replenishing the pits with fresh carnage. When a pit eventually dries, the inevitable storm brews anew, preluding yet another era of slaughter. Elsewhere, rivers of blood, red as the deepest wounds, carve through the land. These rivers, steaming with the heat of fresh bloodshed, carry the essence of countless fallen, whether foe or follower, into their depths. And then, there's the lake of slaughter. Fed by thousands of these rivers, it cascades over a precipice kilometers high, plunging in a horrific waterfall of gore into a basin vast beyond imagining. This lake teems with impossible beasts. Brass and bone leviathans glide beneath its surface, devouring indiscriminately, while above, bloodthirsters clash with dragons wrought from solidified blood. On the distant banks of the Lake of Slaughter, the earth is a carpet of skulls, so densely packed that the soil beneath them remains unseen. For miles, these relics extend from the water's edge, leading towards a monstrous black barrier, the outer wall of Khorne's brass citadel. Atop this wall, guardians stand vigil, their eyes as keen as their fangs are sharp, their blades ready to cleave through flesh and bone. These demons watch for the foolhardy or the brave who might dare a breach. Beneath these sentinels, the ground seethes with flesh hounds. These beasts prowl the skull-littered landscape, their nostrils flaring for the scent of any intruder's blood, eager to hunt, to tear apart any who would attempt to invade. Above the keep, elite bloodthirsters fly through the skies, their senses attuned to the faintest whisper. patrolling the space between the citadel's outer defenses and its ironclad heart. Rare is the army bold enough to assault the brass fortress, for the very air around it is thick with the threat of obliteration, deterring all but the most determined or desperate of Khorne's adversaries. Strategically, the other Chaos Gods hold their forces back from storming the Blood God's fortress, well aware of the deadly gamble such an assault entails. They understand the peril of provoking him in his own domain, the threat of a catastrophic counterstrike by the furious deity paralyzing their ambitions. For none, not even the calculating Tzeentch, with his webs of deceit and prophecy, can foresee the disastrous repercussions of rousing Khorne's wrath. The specter of an all-consuming retribution by the enraged god keeps their armies in check, each power cautiously weighing the fatal odds. At the heart of the citadel, beyond the bastion stair and flanked by the 8 iron pillars, Khorne broods from its throne of skulls. From this grisly seat, it commands its legions, both demonic and mortal, to spread war across the cosmos. Each triumph witnessed stokes its insatiable lust for blood. Every failure results in the blood of the defeated being added to the rivers that flow through its domain. Blood will always belong to Khorne. If it must be drawn from its own minions, so be it. Encircling the throne of skulls is a mound of crania that elevates Khorne, a testament to the countless champions and foes who have fallen. Among these, some skulls could recount tales from epochs past, like the saga of Angron before his fealty to the Blood God, or the catastrophic errors that led whole species to slaughter under the axes of berserk legions. In the cosmic theater of the Great Game, Khorne holds a special loathing for Slaanesh, the Prince of Excess. The debauched decadence of Slaanesh, reveling in sensuous pleasures, grates against Khorne's primal martial ethos like a blade against bone. The Blood God dreams of a day when it can clamp its gnarled, crimson hands around the delicate throat of the Prince of Excess, squeezing until those perverse cries of delight twist into wails of torment, and then silence with the crisp snap of divine vertebrae. Khorne's disdain isn't reserved for Slaanesh alone. It also scorns Tzeentch, the great plotter, the ceaseless scheming of the Changer of Ways, who thrives on sorcery and subterfuge rather than straightforward combat, stokes the fires of Khorne's fury. Yet as ironic as it sounds, there are times when bloodshed and conspiracy align. In such moments, the forces of Khorne and Tzeentch, as unlikely as it seems, forge brief, volatile alliances. These unions are born from convenience, a shared vision of carnage, or a chance to further Tzeentch's inscrutable plots, lighting the skies with the ominous glow of the Chaos Star. But these alliances are as fleeting as they are fierce. The berserk zeal of Khorne's warriors, or the cunning betrayals of Tzeentch's adepts, invariably shatter any semblance of unity. Betrayal is as inevitable as bloodshed in these accords, each god returning to its solitary machinations until the wheel of chaos spins them together once more in a dance of destruction.